What I am thinking is simply to do the same 1, 2, 4 thing that we did before. But this time the question or prompt is, how do I see my own work being most connected to this project? Say life or work, my own life or work being most connected to this project. So we'll take 2 minutes to kind of think about that and write about it. Great, so now let's join up into pairs and we'll have another couple minutes to share with each other.
It's basically, how does your work?
We can do it 3 times. Cool. I'm
Jordan.
I'm Denise. Yeah, so I work at a co-op. I participate in savings board. So I guess I'm interested in collaborating with other people who are also doing that.
Oh, nice. Well, I didn't realize that. I know you work at the bookstore, but I can't remember the name. Where was? Yeah, I didn't know they had a. I knew that, but I didn't know if they had a savings pool there too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we collectively.
So something I've been wanting to work on more recently is like a zero waste initiative for myself. So just like continuing to stay connected with myself and the earth and meeting and reaching people where they are at and not overreaching or desiring change on or impact on those that aren't ready, like they're more resistant or in denial. So that's kind of that's why I really enjoyed a lot of his nature metaphors and stories, because that's how I try to reach people, because I think that's they're more apt to listen. You need to do this or you should do that.
I feel like you're getting a lot of extra time here.
Yeah, me too.
Talk about
I don't really know what else to talk about. Filibustering here.
There's something to react on.
How does Firestorm reach out to marginalized people in the community?
Back in town.
I guess it depends on. I feel like it's possible to push in a lot of different ways. Like for starters, like
Oh yeah.
like there are, I think within Firestorm, like people that work for Firestorm are part of communities that are marginalized, but then also in some ways part of communities that have privilege. So like Firestorm's like run by a queer collective that's right now all white. So it's kind of like okay, on the one hand, like there's this, on the other hand, there's this. And we also are a space that like just really heavily with like health community and like folks either in recovery or who are like actively using.
I really enjoy your needle program and how controversial that is.
That controversy is still happening. Or not controversy, but the fight with the city still.
Yeah, that's what I was.
If you can hear me clap once, if you hear me clap twice, if you hear me clap twice. Great. So how about now we go to joining up into groups of 4, and again, please sharing what your partner in this previous one told you about. And we'll have about 5 minutes for this total, so about a minute per person, and then we'll come back together in the big group. Okay. We need a twosome down here.
And I forgot your name. Ron has a whole different set of offerings than I do, and we love that that's kind of the way we will be in community. A whole completely different sets of skills. So he has an enormous set of skills in building and in cooperative creations with humans, like in neighborhoods, and we both have similar value systems about what we'd like to see happen, particularly when we have coastal refugees from edges of the country.
Anina talked about potentially thinking about who she could start one of these savings pools with, maybe, or who she might envision doing that with, and also just potentially volunteering time with the broader organization, perhaps.
Yeah. And Matt, you were saying you could be involved with money, and then you said you need to think about it a little bit too, like what else could it be? Did you say something else also?
Basically just that I have time and energy, maybe a little bit of money, but I just need some time to let this stew and see what's going on. Well, there was something. Oh, and maybe get involved with a working group. It seemed like there were working groups that were perhaps part of this project.
Jonathan was talking about equitable, fair, setting up a construction company with his partner to be able to really bring a humanness to the whole construction community.
Cool.
And not be so machismo and rough. But really looking at some bigger values than the reactive kind of bullshit. That's how that works. I didn't bring up anything because I kind of came in the group late. So yeah, but I'm kind of with Matt. I mean, I want to take a look at where I could maybe be of value in this whole process. I've got a whole bunch of other things going on that I've been talking about. But yeah, definitely got my ears to the wind here.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I think stew on it, but also maybe put you in on some of the more mundane bureaucratic tasks of asset mapping or something like that. Maybe sticking to my neighborhood and the people that I share a school and a grocery store. That's the nature of our community right now.
Where is that?
Weaverville.
Oh, Weaverville. Yeah.
I would say, I mean, I meet with the people that my kids go to school with. So maybe probing that community and see who's something better.
I have a question about how to find people who are interested in doing what I'm trying to do. That's one thing that I am struggling with is finding people who are motivated to help me get this off the ground. Because the people I've met that are interested because for health reasons, they want to be part of a health initiative. They want to wait and see and watch it happen and get involved after it's already done. And that's not going to work for me because it's so involved. It's very intense and big time. So I don't know how to find people who are motivated.
Where do you live?
Well, I live in Asheville, but we're looking at either Henderson County or Asheville.
Social media?
Right?
Social media? Facebook?
Yeah, I could think about. I'm not so much into Facebook and stuff personally.
Cutting the wire.
I like meeting people, but I had people who wanted to meet. I had people who wanted to meet, and they don't show up to the meeting.
Right, Facebook's very non-committal.
Yeah.
Even in Facebook, you need to go and talk to people privately in private messages.
Yeah.
So you need to, even if you have something on Facebook, you need to like go further on that and talk with everyone personally. So you can just reach people.
Could both of you guys, what you want to do, would that work in the context of what Zev is trying to do?
On the phase 3 healthcare initiative that you're talking about, that's what I'm
Yeah, okay. Do you think what you're doing could work?
I would say there's a very close similarity, especially with the mycorrhizal network analogy, because that's what we've been talking about since the beginning. It's just the power of we and network, and what that can, you know.
Where do you live in Asheville?
Well, I live in Asheville, East Asheville, but the whole thing about solidarity starts with coming together.
You're all finishing up because you have 7 people.
I'm sorry. I
Understand.
We have our shadow.
Are you on the last person in your group? All right, great. You want to come back and join the crew? Well, I just want to give us all praise for having so much stamina on a Saturday. We all stuck it out. And having Patrick preparing a delicious meal at the end doesn't hurt one bit, does it? So, yeah, and I just want to say, you know, this is really important that, like Pat was telling the story of, what's his name? Father Arizmendi. And that's another cultural thing maybe is that there was like a single eloquent leader person getting that all going. And I think that's super dangerous and weak as an organizational strategy. And so also a trap that a lot of good ideas fall into is having, you know, too small of a leadership core, and then that being a lost opportunity for having shared ownership and everyone's different geniuses getting involved in making the thing happen. And so I think it's really important to figure out how to design this so that doesn't happen. And I see myself as like as an ember keeper for this, helping to.
An important point to make though is that Arizmendi quickly got other people up.
Right.
You know, he stepped back very quickly.
Right.
He spent about 12 years. And then he was just in the background, like saying, "Hey, have you looked at this yet?
Oh, yeah.
What about this?" You know.
Right.
We want to avoid being dependent
right. on
any one person, but we can all be an Arizmendi. You know.
Yeah.
We can all take that on.
Right. Yeah, and I think we have a lot of group process tools that haven't been common throughout past kind of social change movements that have come about in the last 20, 30 years into popular access, and just a lot of historical experience to draw on of what not to do and a few things of what to do in terms of organizational structure. So anyway, I'm saying that because there's this phase where I'm working full time on this. We got funding, a private grant from an anonymous donor to fund this thing for me to do a year of work at the beginning, and also Courtney Allen doing part-time work, and then this woman Deborah Penberthy who's producing the podcast that we're producing, the mutual aid podcast, and hopefully we continue to get more diverse funding and have more staff involved as well as people involved who aren't staff. But the reason I bring this up now is because also even the vision that we've articulated so far is not necessarily right in all of its features and details, and to me it's I'm not even at all concerned with being right about it. It's about the spirit of this thing, growing cultural topsoil, taking care of people, taking care of the land here, finding how to work together, and those are kind of the principles of it. And maybe the structure of it's going to look a lot different than this community center thing idea we have. Maybe there are better ideas, and so yeah, and so but we have to have something to push back against. Right, so I'm trying to create something really good to push back against, and then hopefully people will come along and innovate, and hopefully we create an organizational model that creates really good landing places for that innovation and different ingenuity and involvement and ownership. And so, yeah, just to say that out loud and have that be known that that's a desire. And I've never done this before, you know, and the other people working on it have never done it before. No one has done this exact thing before, in fact. So we're kind of making it up as we go along too. And so all of that is a segue for bringing in some of what you all just shared with each other, and just saying that we have a real desire to create shared distributed ownership and initiative and leadership in this thing as appropriate and as we figure out ways to. And for instance, Courtney, who's working part-time right now for this, she just applied for a fellowship from, of all people, the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, right? Old tobacco money. And if she got that, that would be a year and a half of her being paid full-time and having mentors from really profound social change and business movement in her developing the leadership and education dimension of this project, right? So that's one model, is for people who are excited and talented and networked in various areas that are important to this to seek funding and make yourself staff of it, right? It's like, I don't want to be running any more payroll and staff stuff than we have to. Let's make it self-organized, you know, and let's have it be organized and not chaotic, but self-organized, right? So there could be a lot of creative ways to go about this, and beyond just the standard nonprofit model of like, please make donations and all that, which we're also doing, as y'all know, probably with Patreon. We have a Patreon campaign to raise money for getting more staff and office supplies and all that stuff, but also let's do it in other ways and have multiple zones of initiative. So having said all that, we have 25 minutes until we're scheduled to eat this beautiful dinner. And we also, Pat's gonna say a couple things and introduce dinner when it's time. But I just want to open the floor up, and especially around the topics that y'all were just talking about, how you see this connecting with your own lives and work, and kind of finding if they're even little teensy next steps or really cool big ideas that you're feeling inspired about after this, whatever it is, please let's share and talk about it. Who's up first?
Well, I first just wanted to say thanks for having this. I was a little bit confused about what was going on before I came, but I'm happy I came.
Awesome.
And
if you have any feedback on any particular ways that made it clear that we could kind of refine, that would be helpful. Because getting that feedback a lot, that it's like, yeah.
I think it was, yeah. I'll think about that a bit. Okay. But yeah, I worked for the federal government for a while and moved down here in April, and I've been living on some land with some friends, and I'm sort of looking for the next thing, because I left sort of, you know, making money and trying to maybe have a nuclear family at some point and just like do that thing the way I thought I should like grow up. So I've saved money and stuff, and so I have time to contribute to something, and so I'm interested in learning more, and I need to let all this stew a little bit more, but I'm just, you know, this is something that's exciting to me, because it feels like a worthwhile endeavor. So, yeah.
And your name is Matt, right? And so do you have any particular insights as to how you might?
Well, I know you were talking about working groups on particular things, but I don't really know. All the ideas you talked about, even just like you said, getting together with friends and trying to figure out some type of saving system. Just a lot of the ideas were things that I hadn't thought of before. You know, thinking about insurance in different ways and what insurance is and how you can do it with a smaller group of people and have it be the same thing, but something that creates those relationships you were talking about instead of it having it be an anonymous thing. So, yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. And you reminded me, we're really hoping to have it up before this class, but we're going to get it up in the next few days, a series of workshop/work sessions on various pieces of this, going in depth into it. There's going to be like a healthcare one and a credit union and savings pool one and carbon farming one. So going to be different class sessions once a month on Sundays for 3 hours. starting in March and going through August. So those will be up online, and that'll be ways for each of you, if you want to get involved in a particular one, we'll do a big dive into that topic and then into next steps on it. So it's kind of a seed moment for the working group. So that'll be going up on the Cooperative WNC website in the next few days.
One other quick thing that I just thought of, the way to make clear what this is use some of these videos. For me, just hearing you talk has changed my perspective completely. So if you take some of these things and piece them together and put that on the event page or whatever, I think it would.
Thank you, Living the Farm. Yeah, totally, good idea. Yeah. So like some briefer edited versions of them, I think I hear you saying.
Yeah, just a couple minutes, because it was hard to get this from reading the description. But I knew something was going on, and I ended up here. So,
enough to get you here, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks for that. Yeah, Jonathan, right?
Yeah. I think this is an amazing community because the more I find out about what's really going on around Asheville, it's like I'm so impressed. I mean, merely the fact that this group is happening now and you've gotten as far as long as you have in the conversation, I think is very impressive. But the asset management part of it might be real useful to know what are these other groups doing so we're not reinventing the wheel or all trying to work on the same aspect of the same, of a different aspect of the same thing. Yeah. You know, or however you would say that.
Yeah. Are you interested in working on asset management?
Maybe.
Okay. Now you all know as you speak up, you're going to be hit like that. Oh, good idea. Why don't you do it? Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. Yeah. Okay, so Claire, and then I forget your name, but yeah.
So, if you guys, okay, for me, I don't want to come back. I really like an action. I don't want to be like go in a group and talk. I want an action. And we got this big organic grow school thing coming up, and hundreds of people come from all over.
March 8th.
So what would it be like if, and I'll pass around my notebook, if you're involved with a farmer's market and if Zev would briefly create a headliner for a sign-up sheet that says, I don't know, spread the word about mutual aid, find out more here, which website, and
so different people could have these sheets in different places and just be
and
gathering.
I'm volunteering here the whole weekend, and I'll make sure they get around.
That's awesome.
I would.
We'll have a booth
I'll do
there.
that. What?
Living Wet Farms will have a booth. We can put that here.
Oh, good. So that was my next question. Is anybody else having a booth at the organic growing school, or is anybody else interested in doing what I'm talking about? Which means you'll get an email with this spreadsheet, sign up.
Saturday and Sunday, I would.
What?
I'm moderating Saturday and Sunday. I would take it. I would have it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Anybody else? Farmers markets are coming up soon. Nobody else.
Yeah.
Living Wet Farms is the central hub. We got it. I'm a talkaholic, so I'll
Do you want to tie it to Living Web Farms? You talking about like an exhibitor's table?
She has an exhibitor's table.
I know
I have sign-up sheets and I talk to everybody, so.
Yeah, but do we want to tie this to Living Web Farms?
Yeah, we're helping promote everything Zev is doing, so.
Yeah, and I mean, we can make clear that it's a separate organization. We just come off the space. I'm not sure you can get a table this late, really.
Yeah. But it's another good thing, so.
But also there's a social on Saturday night. That could be a good place.
That would be a nice,
yeah,
they can
I'm
put it
doing that
there.
as well.
Does anybody not know about Organic Grower School?
All right. And that reminds me, Claire, is like practicing talking about this, because I've been talking about it a lot and I still have a hard time summarizing it in 2 minutes to somebody, right? So just how do we all practice talking and owning the information, right? Owning this idea so that we can represent it to someone and communicate the value of that in a short conversation is a whole layer of kind of learning, I think. Yeah. Yeah, elevator speech. Elevator speech about, the history of the world. Right. Okay, who's next?
I would be interested in participating in the learning circles aspect. It's something that we've since we started a year ago, before we knew that we wanted, when we started our construction business, before we knew how aligned that was with cooperative models, big aspect of that has been how do we get, or how do we do this learning together as a crew on a regular basis, because usually it's get the work done and then go home. And you're not really building towards anything, you're just building something for the sale. So, and this is something that I've been struggling to implement and doing a lot of rigorous reading. So it would be exciting to maybe bring some group food on a regular basis and have like during a lunch break learning circle on the job, so that we can go home and rest and not have any additional labor.
Reading assignments, homework.
I was thinking about giving some homework. Also, for the community centers, are we familiar with the Rural Studio in Alabama? It's I think it's the University of Auburn. They got the architectural students to live in the communities and build housing. That was from donated materials and labor from those places, and it's the website is the structures are really amazing. I mean, they've got they pretty much use any kind of building material that you can't even imagine. And I like so yeah. The Rural Studio. And what happened there that's really special is because the architectural students lived there, what they built was an architectural style that was from nowhere else on the planet. It was from that region. It was like a architectural pattern from that region and not from England or
wow, indigenous, like neo-indigenous, huh? Yeah. Thanks. And I just wanted to say one thing about the learning circles. I think it's a great idea, and just to again say, I think that these things become more powerful the more functions we stack with them, because we're also busy, and so it's like if we can meet multiple needs in one action, then it really helps. So if the learning circle, like you're saying with work, that's interesting. It's almost like we were talking earlier about the union, and it's almost like a little union. And then you're having a learning circle embedded in work, and then also if you start embedding that with a savings pool or with garden work parties and having all these overlapping things. So it's like, wow, I leave from that gathering feeling really satisfied. All these needs got met. You know, I think then that starts to work into our busy lives in a more natural way, and not to peter away as some activism stuff does, you know, as we get busy with other things. Yeah. Yeah.
Another thought about community centers. In lots of places, schools are being abandoned because they can't afford to keep them up to code. Like in Yancey, 3 schools that's happened to recently. And they're about to be returned to the county, who does not have a vision of a community center, but could have one maybe if we began working on that. Because they're still safe enough for people to gather in, just not safe enough according to the building inspectors. So, like, I'm trying to keep that conversation alive in Yancey County, but the people I work for can't take that on. How can we organize to use some of those places which are, they're closed because they're way out in the very rural parts of the county, and those citizens are angry that that's happened to their school. So there's lots of opportunity around that.
Right, not to mention the hospital future in our region with the and the potential closing of rural hospitals, and it's gonna be a similar thing. Wow, and right, so this is, I could see how ultimately Co-operate WNC could then help to to fund retrofitting of, you know, abandoned school buildings and make it passive solar. And yeah, exactly. And there's so much abandoned infrastructure. You know, there are churches that are abandoned, there are schools, there are shopping malls, and on and on. Yeah.
We know that we're going to meet, and we know we're going to talk about this and this.
Supporting each other and getting started even.
Totally.
Like, what have we talked about so far? What are you guys going to talk about that we might be interested in? Helping us all get a groundwork.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I hear you saying.
And is anything up and running? Like, do you have like we have a viable co-op that's been going since the mid-70s, in food co-op in Silo. So there's something if you're trying to get a food co-op going. I mean, just things like that that are like, which might be part of the assets mapping.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like right now, we would benefit from other people's knowledge right now.
Right.
So.
It's interesting. What that brings up for me is like a needs-based thing, where if a certain group needed a certain type of expertise or knowledge sharing, they could put that ask out to the network within Cooperate WNC, asking for that specific thing, which goes really well with time banking. That's kind of what like Stephanie Rearick with the time banking thing how she's framed it on the Humans website is you get to post a need. It first goes up on a electronic kind of feed, which is posting the most recent or depicting the most recent posts, and then it just goes into the kind of archive, and then people respond and exchange through time making for those skills or knowledge trades. Because a lot of times knowledge trade, like say that you need help starting the co-op, starting a new food co-op, a lot of times that ends up being phone calls and visits and so on, things that take human time. So then it comes down to valuing people's time, and time making can help with that. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know about a web tool for that. We're working on a whole host of web ideas about ways the website could be really useful and not just a listing of information, but interactive. That's a good one. Thank you. All right, I want to honor what Patrick was saying about time. So really appreciate you all coming to support this and be part of it. And I hope that we get to keep working together. And oh yeah, and like I have spoken with the group in Silo and in Silva, and especially if you have a really good body of people you think will show up, I can come and talk for an hour and a half and just kind of get things cooking on that level. You know, and I'm pretty busy, but also this is what I'm doing, and I'm not charging for it either because I'm getting paid a salary, which is great, so I can just do that. And so think about that if there are strategic places, groups that you want to call together around this kind of conversation. We did one with the NAACP in Jackson County that was really juicy. And so whatever kind of groups, diverse groups too, especially. So thank you all for coming and spending your day like this and being part of this. And we hope to be in touch and keep on keeping on together.